Hi, this is Fred with Quality One Engravers. I'm going to do a simple little YouTube video on working with drivers, and all I've got is just the word sample just typed in on a 12 by 12 plate. Really doesn't matter what the job is, but we're going to go to engraving defaults, and the first thing that you usually want to do is set up your Q3X standard ZU driver. From this driver you can generate any other driver that you want to utilize and of course rename it. So the first thing you want to make sure it says that it's one copy. The X and Y moves are usually going to be at 0. The smoothing is at high. I prefer the engrave at sign plate and selected. Current first, and it's a 2.5D engraver. Down here, the output tool paths, if you check on this, it'll uncheck it. If you check back on it, I like both selected. This is output the tool paths, but also cut the original contour. Now, what that does is that will force you that you have to select just the tool path when you go to engrave, and I'll show you that in just a minute. Now, what you can do from here, you can go to tool options here, and you can set up your clearance, your Z feed rate, your XY feed rate, and the auto start, if you change that to 1, it will start the machine automatically when you send the job over. Usually for beginners, I like this left at 0. It's a 2.5D engraver. If I wanted to turn this to a braille, guess what? All I do is just check off braille drill, and now that changes this driver into the braille driver. So I'm going to just say, okay, these numbers look pretty reasonable. And now I'm going to click on setup. Now, of course, I've got several drivers in here, but imagine yourself that you only have 1, maybe 2 drivers. At this point in time, you want to make sure that you have your machine limit set up correctly. And let's say that you've got a 12 by 20 Vanguard 7000. So in that case, the length of it is 20.1 and the width 12.1. Oops, excuse me, 0.1. Now, I usually allow about 1/10 of an inch more than what the actual engraving table is. Mainly because EngraveLab will throw some very erratic numbers into the engraving if you make your plate size bigger than the available machine. So conceivably, if you wanted to and you kept an eye on what you're doing, you could make these machine limits 96 by 96 and of course never run into a problem. But anyways, I like keeping it the proper size, but I add about 0.1 inch. So if I click on OK or apply and OK, I want to see what this looks like. Apply and close. So I'm going to go under engrave, output, and now I can see this is my 12 by 12 plate, and then I can look. If you click on this magnifier with the zoom to material, here's your actual table size. Let me close this out, get back in here. So this is 20, you can see it goes just a little bit beyond 20 and a little bit beyond 12. So this should be the bed that you're looking at. So now let's go back into engrave, and then of course you send this job over, make sure it engraves correctly and everything looks good. Then you go back to your engraving defaults, setup, and then what you do is you click on this one and you say create custom copy of selected driver. So here's what it comes up, and for this example, I'm going to just put junk so that I delete it. Now you can put whatever you want there. Keep in mind, make whatever is in the beginning very meaningful. Let's say you're sending to several different machines, so it might be Ethernet, so you might put 165, or you might put COM1 if you've got several COM ports, and you might put metal. And if you wanted to leave the Q3X, that's fine. If you want to leave the standard, so let's say we're sending it to COM1 and it's metal and it's Q3X. You say OK. Now, kind of a stupid thing that CADLink doesn't do is here you are still on the original driver and way down at the bottom is the one that you've duplicated. So in this case, we want to go to the port, make sure that the port is on COM1, go to the engraver, maybe it's a different size machine, and since it is for metal, we want to go to tool options and maybe change our XY feed rate to maybe something like 0.4, and usually your Z feed rate, you want to be at about half the speed of your XY feed rate. And maybe for this job you want to either increase the clearance or decrease the clearance. A lot of times if I'm doing machining, I tend to decrease the clearance. Okay, and then just say OK, and then apply and OK. Apply and close. And now when I go to engrave, I go to output, and here it is, I'm on the metal. Now if I click here, I can click any of my other drivers, but for this example I want to stay with this COM1 metal. Now I know the last time I engraved this word sample with this metal driver that it was maybe just a little bit too fast. So I want to go to the top of the class, and I know some of my things are silly, but this is the one that you change, the top one. So getting to the top sometimes is getting an A in the class or whatever. But anyways, now by clicking on the top one, I'm able to modify this. So if maybe it was engraving a little too fast, I'm going to take it down to 0.3, and I'm going to take my Z feed rate down to 0.12 or something like that and say OK. Now remember, whatever you change, that will be the new value for that driver. Whereas if you click down here, it gives you the selection of other drivers, and you can change your machine limits and things of that nature, but you can also get to your tool options. And you can see the changes that I made was 0.3 and 0.12. But typically the one that you're going to change is this one right up here for the tool setup. I don't know why they call it tool setup when in other cases they call it tool options. And basically you're going to now go to the engrave button and you're good to go. Hope this helped.